Welcome back. Still Breakfast Extra here for a Sunday edition. Let's talk about the national grid. The Nigerian national electricity grid collapsed yet again at the start of last week at about 2:42 a.m. on Monday, with generation dropping to 64.70 megawatts. Now, confirming the collapse, the Just Electricity Distribution Company, in a statement signed by the head of corporate communications Friday, Elijah, said the loss of power supply from the national grid occurred in the early hours of Monday.
Now, in November 2013, the federal government privatized all generation and 11 distribution companies, with the federal government retaining the ownership of the transmission company. This was to improve efficiency in the sector. However, since privatization, the grid has collapsed more than 140 times, collapsing for a third time in 2024 on Monday.
Now, joining us as we unpack this issue, we have with us here, joining via Zoom or via online video chat, Wesley Omonfoman, GMD, New Hampshire Capital Group. You are welcome, sir. Good to have you.
Thank you for having me this morning.
Thank you so much for coming on. Let's get started quickly and just dive in and address the current national grid collapses in Nigeria. What are the underlying factors contributing to these recurrent issues that we've seen 3 times already, or 4 times this year? Is that too much?
Thank you. Well, system collapses, as they're known, are usually part of operating a national grid, and they could occur from vandalism of transmission lines, as the last 2 cases have been, where some vandals had cut down 2 transmission lines between the Shirura and Abuja leg. It could also happen when you lose generation. So a generation plant actually goes down, maybe out of gas, or there's a failure of that of the turbines, right? So, but transmission collapses could happen for a variety of mechanical reasons or electrical reasons. There could also be the frequency aspect of it, where the system is meant to be at a particular frequency, and then it goes out of that frequency. It needs to shut down. So you would system collapses are part of operating a national grid, and you would always have them. The issue is, how do you make sure they're not as frequent as we're seeing it?
So talking about that now, exactly what steps can be taken to prevent any future grid collapse?
Well, first of all, you need to stop vandals. Our biggest challenge we're having right now in recent times are people deliberately going to destroy transmission infrastructure. We have them in the Northeast, where we had Boko Haram blow up about 3 transmission towers, and vandals just go and hack these towers just like that. The other thing you can do, but then to make sure you prevent that amount of the system from collapsing, you need to have what you call a spinning reserve. So a spinning reserve is, for instance, if a generation plant goes down, say you lose about 300 megawatts, you should have another generation plant supply that 300 megawatts within a space of seconds or minutes. So you need to have what you call a spinning reserve. Think of the spinning reserve as having comprehensive insurance on your car, right? Something happens, and then the insurance company steps in to make sure your car is back and up and running. The challenge with spinning reserve is that it comes at a cost. So you have somebody producing 300 megawatts, but not actually putting it on the grid, just waiting for the grid or for that event to happen, and then that reserve is brought onto the grid. It's a cost which has been a challenge to factor into tariffs. But to the extent that there are preventive measures as much as possible, planning for load, system operations, and then having that spinning reserve, you could curtail as much as possible the frequency of system collapses or grid collapse as we know it now.
Right. Now, we understand that the sector is somewhat privatized, right? Although it's a public-private partnership going on. And at first, when this happened, we thought it was crucial in the transformation of Nigeria's power sector. Is it still crucial in transforming Nigeria's power sector, public-private partnership, and in what sorts this time around?
Okay, so first of all, let me say this. The transmission aspect of the electricity sector wasn't privatized. It still remains under government control. Let me also say that the reason why we don't have reliable power is not because of the transmission network. That might be shocking to a number of people, but it's not because we have system collapses. System collapses last for between 8 to 12 hours, and then the national grid is restored again. So that's not why we don't have reliable power. To your question in terms of privatization of the distribution aspect of it was meant to deliver reliable power. That aspect of privatization is what has failed due to a combination of reasons ranging from poor regulations, the investors not having the right financial capacity to make the right investments in the distribution aspect of it. Now, generation was privatized as well. So if you look at generation, I'm sure you heard of Geregu. It's a ₦1 trillion company. You've heard of Transcorp Power. That's almost a ₦1.7 trillion company. These are the same companies operating in the sector, but they are on the generation side. So generation, privatization of generation aspect of the power sector has worked. We have 13,000 megawatts of available capacity. What has failed and continues to fail is the distribution side of the sector. And without the distribution side of the sector getting up and being revamped, either through privatization or more competition in that space, I don't think we would ever have reliable power.
Okay, so let's talk about the hike in tariffs so far. Consumers have been asked to pay higher. That's BandAid consumers. And that's under the promise that they were going to be giving 20-hour power supply. Now, with the dysfunction that we're seeing in the system, now should Nigerians actually be paying that premium that they were asked to pay?
First of all, service-based tariffs, as they are known, was introduced 2020. It's not a new thing. I'm just shocked that Nigerians were not aware that they were supposed to be paying for services based on the number of hours that they get. And it's also no surprise because where you have this tariff introductions, there were not enough public consultations. So under the service-based tariffs, BandAid customers should expect minimum of 20 hours per day. Band B customers 16 hours per day. Band C 12, and then Band D 8 hours. Obviously, if your band is not mentioned, that means you don't even have power at all. Now, in terms of what the tariff hike, what we now see is that the federal government is using BandAid customers to subsidize the entire sector. Is that fair? Is that unjust? That's a question that perhaps those who are interested in challenging this in court should push for. But the reality is that we don't have enough electricity because of the fact that the tariffs that we also pay for the services are not commensurate to the cost of producing it. I mean, up until recently for the BandAid customers. The other challenge I have is that we're focusing on the cost of BandAid customers. Nobody's focusing on the fact that are they really getting the 20 hours of service? Are Band B customers who are paying for Band B service as regulated or as stipulated by NEC, are they getting the 16 hours of service? Are Band C customers getting the 12 hours of service? Until we start to interrogate the quality of service provided by these utility companies, specifically DISCOs, we will focus on the wrong things. And I mean, focusing on 225 naira per kilowatt hour is not the right approach. The right approach should be, are we getting 20 hours as we said? And if we're not getting 20 hours, what is the recourse? What is the mechanism to make sure I get 20 hours of service? Somebody who's supposed to have 16 hours, what's the recourse if he doesn't get 16 hours of service? Yes, they have been running on generator. We ran on generator since Friday night up until sometime early this morning. I'm supposed to be on, I think, Band B or something like that. And that's ridiculous. So I think if government has to increase tariff to guarantee quality of service, then it should do so, provided that that quality of service is met.
Right. Let's talk about the future of energy for Nigeria and what it would cost for us to ensure that, I mean, Band A, Band C, Band D, bandit, contraband, they all get
Jokes.
they're all assured that what is promised on their bands. What would it cost?
I don't think it's a matter of cost. I think we run a system that will never deliver power to us reliably, whether you pay 100,000
So total overhaul?
you will never get it because of the system we're running. We're running a system where distribution companies have monopoly. Where you have monopoly, you never have efficiency. So what needs to happen is more competition at the distribution side. I can tell you for free, people in Benin City, they're enjoying 24 hours of service on another distribution company, licensed by those states.
And how do they generate that power?
24-hour power service.
How do they generate that power?
So you have a system where you have the discos as currently structured, regulated from Abuja. It will never work. So my own recommendation is Lagos State should immediately pass its law to allow more players in Lagos State electricity market. States should pass their laws.
So Wesley,
otherwise the current structure we're running will never work.
Wesley, I was asking, how do they generate that power, that privately generated power? What is the means? Is it thermal? Is it hydro? How exactly do they generate it?
It's the same gas that we all complain about. It's the same gas. It's the same hydro. The point is generation is not our problem. Our problem is the fact that for you and I to enjoy supply, we have to be connected to a disco service. That disco is not reliable. So what you need is if you're not getting service from that utility, what you need to do is, okay, who else can provide me service? So what that entails is for the states to license another entity to provide distribution services. And the truth of the matter is electricity distribution are actually covered under state laws. So it's the state, not the national, not the federal government, that should make laws for electricity distribution within a state. So as much as we want reliable power, we will never get reliable power under the structure where the federal government and the utilities or the discos have this monopoly over who delivers power to us. So we need more competition in that space. Once you have more competition, certain things start to happen. First, there's innovation. We don't have innovation in the distribution space in this country right now. We don't have that.
Okay.
Right? You have more local investors coming in, and you're not looking at the local investors who are. You find out that all you need is a transformer, somebody to change your transformer. That's what you need to get 24-hour power. But the utility company cannot make that investment, and where you have those challenges, you can never get it. That's why we need third-party states to license more competition at the distribution side to make sure we have more power.
Thank you very much, Wesley.
Wesley, many thanks for just giving us lots of insights on there. We appreciate you.
Yeah.